Welcome, everyone, to another session, another meetup of DevOps Live. My name is Mike Rosato. My Twitter handle is Mike Ross at TX, and you can find anything about me on Twitter normally. But just to get started, I want some brief announcements. Everybody is aware that we have postponed our DevOps days to August of 2022 due to the pandemic. That's been happening for a lot of DevOps Days meetups around the world, but there's a lot of DevOps Days meetups that are happening virtually. So feel free to go to devopsdays.org and register for any of the virtual meetups happening around the world and go meet of some of the DevOps practitioners from around the world and see what they're experiencing, see if they have the same pain points as you do. But it's fun, just go out and register. Also, another quick announcement that the all-day DevOps, that's a 24-hour event of speakers, is happening. It's just around the corner in November. So go out to all-day DevOps website and register to attend. You don't have to be there the whole 24 hours. You could just register and attend a couple of hours, go to work, come back, and still pick up where you left off on a few of the other speakers. So tonight, without further ado, we have a full house of Red Canaries. I'm going to bring them in one at a time here. Let's start off with Brian Howard. I got Brian Howard here.
Hey there.
I got Shane Welcher here, and I got Terry Kearney here. Let me see. I'm having a little trouble bringing Terry in. Let's see. My mouse cooperates. Let's see. Here we go.
Hey, everybody.
There she is, Terry. Okay, let's start off with Brian. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Well, hey, folks, it's good to reconnect. I may have met some of you in previous roles, so it's really, really a pleasure to reconnect with DevOps Live and Mike, with yourself. So yeah, I work for Red Canary. I'm a regional sales director. I'm based in Grapevine, right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and have been a fan of different DevOps groups and supporting companies for a long time. I wanted to, just see if Mike had an opportunity for a briefing, and Mike found out about our Atomic Red Team and some of the initiatives that we do for the community for free. And he said, man, it'd be really cool to share that information. So I've got my partner from the Atomic Red Team, one of them, here tonight, Shane, and also somebody who works with me every day, Taylor, in the territory and helping to serve customer. Yep. What I'm going to do is I have literally, I think I have a title slide, and then I have two content slides about one of our products that I just thought was relevant to this community with cloud. And then after that, it'll be over to Shane. But yeah, thanks for having us, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. I'll let Shane give a quick intro of himself, what he does.
Yep, I'm a detection engineer over at Red Canary. Just means I create detection logic, do some automation here and there. My previous past life, I was a network administrator / system administrator / et cetera. Awesome. One of those, all hats kind of people.
Yeah.
So I can kind of relate to a lot of these DevOps people here. This is my first time with the DevOps Live, so this is a really neat introduction into this. And so just kind of what I'm going to kind of cover is just Atomic Red Team, how we utilize that for people that aren't kind of involved in security. And what you're going to kind of find, especially like if you do any kind of monitoring, whether you're monitoring uptime of servers up and, any kind of thing like that, there's a lot of very similarities into a lot of the stuff that we do. So awesome. It should be a really easy transition for a lot of you.
Awesome. Great. And Taylor, I'm sorry that I butchered your name earlier. Say Terry. But
oh, that's fine. That's fine. I've met way too many Taylors anyway, so this was more exciting.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am on the sales team with Brian. I cover the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and then awesome. The OLA part of OLA. So I'm just excited to kind of meet everybody and get some networking started. So
awesome. Great. Well, thank you all for having, for coming on and being part of this meetup tonight. What I'm going to do right now, let's go ahead. Let's see how I can do this here. I'm going to go ahead and remove Shane for the moment and Taylor. And we're going to go ahead and then get Brian over here with a little short intro. And I'll go ahead and let you go ahead. It's all yours, Brian.
You can see it fine?
Yeah, we can see it perfect.
Okay, good. Great. Well, thanks so much for having us, and love to connect with some of you guys on LinkedIn. Feel free. That's my cell phone. If you guys want to text me about lunch or a question, that's my email address. I'm super happy we are meeting with, we're not doing big events yet, but we are meeting customers one-to-one. So I'd be happy to bring in lunch for the team or meet you guys for lunch sometime. But yeah, we actually, I wanted to honor the educational aspect of tonight. So I probably went too skinny, and I literally only have 2 slides for you guys. The business problem that our cloud workload protection solution solves is that it protects Linux workloads in the cloud, on-prem, hybrid, whatever, like literally bare metal, all the way to bare metal, all the way up to containers. Incredible amount of support. We go all the way back to 10 years of Linux support, every flavor. It's really an incredible amount of support. It's a sensor, and we offer it as a managed service or as you manage it, 2 different flavors. And so basically what this does is it inspects the workload. So there's a lot of things, all of you guys know quite well that there's products out there like Cloud Health that do a good job of determining the cloud configuration, because and there's cloud firewalls and network inspection and all kinds of things. One area that's been really neglected until really recently, and we were pioneers in this area, is inspecting the actual Linux workload itself. And so it's a very scalable, solution that has very little CPU and memory consumption. But basically, we deploy the sensor in the cloud or on-prem, or both, and we find threats, and then either you triage that and respond, or we can for you. Like, again, there's 2 versions of it. And not to be too brief, I literally only have this extra. This is all I have for you on this slide, because I wanted to kick it mostly to Shane for the awesome free tools that we have. But cloud workload protection, the pillars of this are, as you can see on the right, we support, all the major clouds. We support, on-prem, VM, everything. We just support everything, really. And people are blown away by the depth of support that we do have for this product. There's just 3 things on the screen, 3 kind of major bullets on the screen. Number 1 is that we support Linux where you need it. You can see some of those examples up there. But it's pretty incredible. I heard I was on the phone this afternoon with a customer in Houston that is a SaaS company in the oil and gas space. They're replacing a competitor right now because they several reasons. One of the reasons is support. Another reason is they're causing overhead and problems on workload, and we didn't. They said, it's interesting. The DevOps person told the security person, "Hey, we can have this up and running, pretty fast." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I got 38 instances up in 2 minutes." And he goes, "Well, we have 1,000 in AWS. What would it take to instrument all of that?" And he said, 15 minutes for 1,000. And it just completely floored security that DevOps was that confident. So anyway, good support, easy to use, and fast to deploy. The second bullet point is safety and performance focused. Talked a little bit about it, but 1 to 3% CPU, very, very cheap to run, and very scalable. And what we do is we do things like, it's runtime threat detection. So process, network, DNS, user activity monitoring, things like behavioral analysis. Is it supposed to be doing this? Things like administrative access. Why is someone doing this at 3 a.m. with an administrator access and they're doing X, Y, and Z? That seems suspicious. So we detect all that. We scan and detect for suspicious behavior, memory integrity, rootkit, shell activities, a lot of areas of Linux and cloud. There's a difference between just Linux detection and Linux in the cloud, and there's more requirements and there's more opportunities there to provide excellent coverage. So we've done that, and we're really proud of it. Again, that's all we've got for you because we wanted to honor the educational aspect of that. But feel free to hit us up if you want more. And I know Mike's going to mention our giveaway of our shirts. I tried to wear one. I won't look as good as y'all do in them, But we do have a short giveaway. And then we have a random drawing for anybody who fills out the Google form for a $50 Amazon gift card as well. But Mike, that's all I had on this. And we're happy to do briefings for people whenever they want.
Great. Thanks for sharing. So let me go ahead and bring Shane back in. Let's see here. There we go. Let me bring his slide deck here. There we go. Then I'll take and remove Brian. So thanks, Brian. I'll be back to you in a little bit. Okay, Shane. So
you ready for me?
Hold on a second real quick here. Let's see if I can remove. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and leave you with Shane. Shane, you could go ahead and just, like I said, maybe there's a few people joining late. Just give us a quick intro about yourself, and then you could proceed with the slides. I'll let you go through the whole thing, and I'll remove myself.
Cool. We're going to kind of talk about security control validation for non-security teams. If you're not familiar with some of the open source stuff that Red Canary has published, Atomic Red Team is kind of what this is going to kind of revolve around if you're not familiar with that. Just to give you a little bit more information about who I am. Again, my name is Shane Welcher. I'm a detection engineer. I'm based out of the DFW Metroplex as well, Weatherford, if you're familiar with that. Just as a heads up, I am in a tornado warning, I think, now at the moment. So if I disappeared, you'll have a heads up and know why. Like I said, my day-to-day job at Red Canary is detection engineer. It kind of revolves around a lot of analysis, creating detection logic, implementing automation. Before I came to Red Canary, I was a network administrator / infrastructure administrator. So I touched everything from SCADA and stuff I shouldn't have even been touching to backup servers and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So I haven't done a lot of the DevOps stuff that you get to see nowadays, cloud stuff, but it definitely does interest me. And just kind of continue with this, before I was even previously a system administrator. While I was doing that stuff, I was also a contributor to Atomic Red Team. It was in its infancy. I kind of saw that it was a big issue whenever I was creating a lot of my detection logic on my own, just trying to validate that my detection logic was accurate. When I ran across Atomic Red Team in the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, and it really led me into wanting to contribute to that. So it's enough about me. Just kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what MITRE ATT&CK is. If you're not familiar with it, we're going to go through what Atomic Red Team is, and then just how you kind of simulate threats and validate detection with it. So what is MITRE ATT&CK? MITRE ATT&CK references it as a globally accessible knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques based on real world observations. You can read that definition right there. That's stolen right from their website. It's a repository. When it kind of get down to it, it's just a repository of a whole bunch of different techniques that adversaries use on a regular basis. It's a way to kind of structure these and kind of better understand where your coverage should lie. There's, I don't know how many exact number there are. That probably changes on a day-to-day basis. So I'd be lying to you if I told you a number, but there's a ton of them. And so it's really nice that MITRE has kind of gone through and documented this. I wish a lot of other industries, not just security, would do these kinds of things. It kind of sets a best practice, if you will, for security, especially when it comes to detection, in which this is kind of what we revolve this talk around, and how Red Canary kind of uses it most frequently. But whenever I started in security, this was extremely helpful to kind of reference. Even in its early stages, because the security is just so big, and there's so many things you have to constantly kind of keep up with. And so having this kind of list of things to reference is very helpful. I wish people would do stuff like this with backups and switches and stuff like that. It would make network administration, system administration so much easier if there was some kind of big list like this. So how do we use ATT&CK? People can use it. There's a whole bunch of different ways. Some of the most common: classifying threats consistently, communicating about threats effectively. Really, I kind of focus around organizing detection coverage. And it's just kind of whenever I was kind of building out detection coverage and contributing on a regular basis to Atomic Red Team, I was just kind of going through each MITRE attack technique and comparing that to what Atomic Red Team existing had. And if I saw gaps in there, I was adding new Atomic Red Team little commands to run, and then launch those within my environment, make sure I was getting the logs correctly and shipping those over there, and my detection logic was working how I was intending it to. That's really the gist of what all this is. As we kind of said, there are, previously you kind of saw that first overview. There's a ton of different techniques within each one of those tactics and techniques kind of thing. There's even sub techniques, and you can kind of see how they split out even further. So, when you think about atomic, it's there's like Atomic Habits. There's a book on that, and they kind of talk about I can't remember the exact history of all this, but the idea is a very small test that allows that you can run to help you identify and check and validate that your detection logic is working as you intend it to. Something, back in my system administrator days, there, I used to take for granted and just make the assumptions on a lot of the alerting, and it kind of is kind of different between security and when you're doing like system administration. If you're monitoring servers for, if they're up or down or something, or same thing with switches, most of the time you're creating you're using some kind of pre-built scripting inside some kind of monitoring framework, Nagios or something like that. Used to, and I'm probably showing my age, that was still viable back in my day. But you just take for granted that it's working appropriately. The really only way for you to test that is to shut something down, and typically it's not ideal in production unless you kind of adopt something like chaos engineering and you're that advanced. But for the most part, if you're a smaller to medium-sized business, you're going to struggle with being able to take those down and have that monitoring and that validation that you really need to be effective when it comes to monitoring. So just kind of a high-level idea of kind of what some of these sub-techniques kind of look like. So we have, for instance, the command and scripting interpreters. So like in Windows environments, these are the ones that MITRE kind of focuses around. So you have PowerShell, AppleScript, Windows Command Shell, blah, 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 all of them. You can read them all right there. And it gives you all sorts of additional information. If you're doing reporting and you have some way to map some of your reporting with your detection logic, you can kind of do that if you're trying to see what the breadth of your coverage, if you're able to map that within your environment. It shows you, like, for each technique, it'll show you each operating system that it kind of supports, as well as like the where you find these data sources at. A lot of us, if you're not familiar with a lot of it, especially when it comes to Windows, you have Sysmon, you have PowerShell script logging. A lot of that stuff isn't enabled by default, and kind of configuring those from the ground up can definitely be frustrating, and even validating that you're getting all of that telemetry from all your different subnets and VLANs it can definitely be a struggle. And so this is really where something like Atomic Red Team really shines. It allows you just to execute. I'll kind of get further into it, but like I said, it just allows you to execute and validate that you are getting the telemetry as you're anticipating, and your detection logic is alerting you as expected. Also, MITRE kind of maps a lot of these techniques to like some of the threat groups. So if that's something like you're really concerned about, most organizations probably struggle with this just because the effort to go in there to map every single threat actor, it sometimes can, it's a lot of effort, and a lot of teams don't have just, I guess, that amount of resources to be able to do that. But MITRE gives you that ability to kind of map some of those techniques there to maybe narrow it down if you need to. So again, what is Atomic Red Team? It's a framework. It's again a repository, if you will. We have, it's hosted on GitHub. It's just a repository of a bunch of small little tests that you can execute on whatever operating system you need to. Of course, each technique is going to be different for each operating system, but and they're, we don't. It's not a one-to-one mapping. You can't execute every one of them on Windows as you can Linux or something like that. But there are a ton of techniques, and I'm pretty sure it's been a long time since I've gone through and contributed and done all this mapping and stuff. But for the most part, there is almost I think a test for every single MITRE technique. I may be wrong on that. There are a ton of them. And it's changing constantly, but like I said, it's just a way really for you, and it's a repository of just known commands that similar to what adversaries have used previously, in a way to execute, validate, make sure that you have test coverage in these specific techniques, and make sure that whenever the detection logic that you implement within your environment is working. Because sometimes too, if it's not working, there's really no way. You may be like in a black hole. You just don't know that it's working. I remember one time, whenever I was first setting up a SIEM in an environment, I had just deployed Sysmon. I started getting, and this is not the best example, but like I started getting some of the Sysmon logging for PowerShell script. Scripts that were executing, and we happened to find something that was like, this is an encoded PowerShell command that was executing, and quickly identified the EDR solution that we had deployed. It wasn't completely configured all the way, so it wasn't actually blocking that. So it's like it allows you to kind of test some of that kind of logic and make sure that what you're anticipating within your environment is actually happening. So you're not making assumptions. You're not popped with any surprises. So again, it's just validating assumptions about tooling, and that tooling could be any kind of software, could be any kind of law bin. Allows you to assess how effective your detection logic is. That one of the struggles a lot of people have, I think, within the security industry, whenever you're creating detection logic, is we do a lot of theoretical detection logic. We implement it without testing it, or really without putting it into an environment, really. And so without really understanding what we're doing. And it's not always a big deal, but like depending on how much data you're receiving, you may be overloading your storage. You may be caught, if you overload your network, depending on how good a network is, you may be causing network problems. Just depending on things that you deploy with that in your network. And it too, like what's neat about this is a lot of, like I said earlier, like a lot of these techniques are very similar to stuff that adversaries do use on a regular basis. So if you're not familiar with some kind of technique, it gives you an easy way to execute it without having to be an expert in that specific technology, if you will. Like here in an instance, I'll show you an instance of like MS Build. Like one of the examples of that within Atomic Red Team is like, if you ask me to go write some CS project for MS Build, like I'm just going to, go to Stack Overflow and copy and paste all that stuff. But like with Atomic Red Team, we already have these examples written, so you don't have to really worry about being an expert in that technology as such, as you can just go launch one of these instances to test your detection logic. So this is just kind of a screenshot of our GitHub repository. You can kind of see there's all sorts of different techniques, and you can see the some of them are the sub techniques. You can see like T1 or T1003.001, each one of those, and then there's all these other ones listed. And within each one of those, there's typically a YAML file, and these YAML files will kind of look like this. And these are just some of the example commands. Like for instance, this is one for enabling guest account RDP capabilities and admin privileges. These are just the commands that get executed if you're wanting to monitor, like if you have guest account disabled within your environment. This is how we've seen previously not administrators, but adversaries perhaps launch that sequence of events. That way you can maybe, you don't have to detect every single one of these, but maybe you just detect one of them. It's not going to give you still complete coverage, but it's going to give you good enough coverage. and maybe you build a dashboard on one of these, but it allows you at least just to get a, without you having to go research how to do this command, especially in the Windows world, how to do each one of these commands. It's just a quick way to execute this entire thing. And then there's also cleanup commands, so you're not just leaving your dirty laundry out throughout the environment. Here's another example, MS build. Like I said, MS build is it's a whole little animal, I guess, in itself. If you've been in security, you know it's a big problem. If you haven't been in security, you may or may, if you're a developer, you may or may not have used it previously. But like, there's all sorts of things that you can do with it. And this is just a simple way for you to be able to launch it remotely, similar to what some things we've seen adversaries use before, just to make it easy for you to be able to attack this stuff. So what is invoked atomic? It's just a way to execute those commands in an automated fashion. There's all sorts of runtime environments that have been built off Atomic Red Team now. Invoke Atomic was like one of the earlier ones. And I think it was the one that was built whenever I was kind of contributing on a regular basis. But like, it allows you just to execute those commands all at the same time, because whenever in its early days you were copy and pasting each one of those commands, but allows you to just, via PowerShell, allows you to execute it as like you would, like if you import any kind of PowerShell module, you can execute it like that based on the technique, and it's just a really easy way to execute it. Same thing, you can look at all the atomics, you can execute the tests, and also like if you don't have a specific dependency installed on your machine, it'll allow you to it'll install that for you, and as well as uninstall that in an automated fashion. There's all sorts of ways you can do this. Some people like I said, there's also all sorts of runtimes for this. Like I think people built one for Ruby. There's ones for Python I've seen. There's all sorts of different ones, but like people launch them via scheduled tasks. People do them manually. There's all sorts of options for you to do this, and I always like it. Whenever I was doing it, I would always try to launch it occasionally throughout my entire network. Try to do it on a different machine each time I did it, just to kind of validate, like, hey, I'm getting the information. I'm getting logs as I intended. It's really difficult to know what machines aren't sending logs, and sometimes they just stop sending them sometimes. So this is a good way to just kind of validate, again, your detection logic and any kind of automation that you may build off of this. Say if you have some kind of scripts that fire off if certain events happen within your network, you can test it this way to ensure that it's going to work when it does happen. So again, you're not caught with any surprises the day it actually does happen. This is just an example, some PowerShell commands that are being executed, and you can kind of see there's all sorts of different switches you can use, and they'll show you different things. I won't get too much into the weeds with this. But they're just, like I said, there's just an easy way for you to, again, invoke atomic test. You specify the technique that you want to launch, and it'll execute it, and then you can send this, however you're shipping your logs, whether that be EDR, Sysmon, PowerShell script block logging, whatever it may be, and you can validate that you are getting that telemetry to your SIEM or whatever you may be getting. Again, just some more examples. We don't need to go through each one of these switches, but like I said too, there's a lot of cleanup scripts too involved with this. That's really helpful because you don't want to be, especially like with the one we saw earlier, like with the admin accounts as well as the guest accounts. Like if those are disabled within your environment and you're enabling those, you want to make sure that those do get I'm sure you have some kind of GPO that's executing that will disable it for you. But like if you didn't, it's going to clean up some of that mess that you may leave behind with this. So just a good way. And then too, like this is just an example of some of the telemetry that you may receive from one of these executions. And like there's all sorts of detection opportunities from executing these. Like I can't tell you how often I see one of these Red Server 32 executions throughout all of our clients' environments execute each day. And it's not just Atomic Red Team. There are adversaries that use this on a regular basis. You can look for stuff like Red Server 32 making external network connections, or you could look for that ScrobJ DLL being loaded. There's all sorts of, I guess, opportunities for you to be able to detect with each one, and create even new detection logic with each one of these executions, because you may find some kind of detection logic that you have in your environment that's just way noisy. And by you being able to, emulate a real threat, you may be able to look at that and say, hey, there's a good way for me to, change how I detect this type of activity, and be able to tune out a ton of noisy stuff that you may see on a regular basis, and just make your whole, I guess, detection platform a little bit more efficient. So it's just an idea. And what's too, like, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but this is really neat. With each one of those MITRE attack techniques, they reference the data source that you should and be able to leverage to be able to get this information. So, like, if you have process monitoring, or did I lose y'all? Oh, I'm not sure if I lost y'all or not. I'm losing power a couple of times. But you have all sorts of different abilities to, like, and different data sources that you may not be aware of, that you can go reference to kind of find. So I don't know if you were hopping in there or not. So last but not least, that's kind of just a very high level overview. I know we had a question there. Anyone with a security experience would be definitely welcome as contributors. The other neat thing is like, it doesn't have to just be security people. Like I said before, I got into security. The easiest transition, like, and even how I kind of got introduced at Red Canary, was I started contributing to Atomic Red Team. And just me getting familiar with being able to execute these commands and validate my detection logic, it just translates so well, especially to, like, what we do and most teams do on a day-to-day basis. And so it's pretty neat. So definitely lots of opportunities to showcase your talents by being a contributor. So
Sounds great. Thank you for the presentation, Shane.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't my power didn't cut out there.
No, not it. It kind of went in and out. Bringing everybody back in here. It kind of went in and out, but we got all the
good deal.
all the slides kind of came in. Let me hold on a second here. Let me see if I can rearrange this. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I got everybody back in. Let me post this real quick here, so everybody that's on, if they can go out and register. So that's the link. They're going to be drawing a drawing for $50 gift card. That's correct, Brian? Yeah, and everybody that registers can get a free T-shirt. So that's the link to register.
This is one of them. This is one of the T-shirts. I think there's a couple options. Taylor, isn't there a couple options when we give them the link?
Yeah, there's a few options, and I like to joke that we're actually a T-shirt company in disguise as a security company, because I know you guys have a ton of vendor T-shirts, but our founders decided that ours are going to be the most comfortable vendor T-shirts in the world. So
awesome! That's awesome collection. We have a few people online. If anybody wants to post your questions, we'll make them available here.
Can I ask Shane a question that may help somebody?
Sure.
So Shane, when you start, so some of these folks might be in a DevSecOps role, but a lot of them might just be in a DevOps role. As you know, there will be a lot of people who have some cloud interaction in this group. So the testing kits and strategies and free tools that we have available, obviously free is pretty awesome. People really appreciate that. But are they relevant also for cloud or hybrid?
I mean, as long as you have, like, instances of Windows or Linux or any kind of VM or something that's running within a cloud space. So you can, as long as you can execute those commands, they'll be relevant. As long as you have some kind of data source that you're going to be forwarding over to some kind of SIEM or something like that, they'll definitely be relevant. But as far as like, when you start talking about cloud, there's all sorts of other monitoring you need to do, like random logins and stuff like that, that really isn't covered with this stuff. But that MITRE ATT&CK does kind of highlight some of that stuff. So it's, you can get creative and maybe create your own playbooks or something to kind of target that stuff.
It sounds like the beauty of this is that these tools are very agnostic. So it really doesn't matter the platform you're on. Do these tools also allow you to run if somebody's using a Macintosh platform like an Apple?
Yep, there's some that are targeted for Mac. It's obviously a lot of them are. It's a lot more limited, but at the same time, and it's kind of the same thing with like Linux, but like at the same time, there's still a ton of them. And, when you start talking about that kind of area, it starts getting a lot more difficult to effectively do detection in those realms. But like, this is what's really important about having something like Atomic Red Team to be able to validate your detection logic that it is effectively finding what you're anticipating it to find.
Right. I just asked because I know there are a lot of there's a lot of people I know that are DevOps enthusiasts and practitioners that usually run on MacBook Pros, and that's their main platform.
Yeah,
of choice.
I'm the same way, and a lot of people at our company I think are too. So
okay,
they're just a lot better computers. I'm not gonna lie to you. I spent a ton of money on an XPS. I'm not gonna. Last year, the year before, and it won't stay charged for like 2 hours. It's frustrating.
I hear you. So if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to post them. We have a few more minutes to go here. Before I don't want to make sure we don't lose Shane in the storm that he has over there. That we heard a lot of thunder happening in the background.
Yeah, it's starting to. I can definitely hear it. It's starting to get worse. So.
I think it adds great dramatic effect.
It does.
Atomic red testing.
There you go.
Good one.
Let's see if we can have anybody. If anybody else is ready, wants to post any questions, any security questions out there that you're lingering to the cloud, to anybody. Let's give it a few seconds here.
I'll ask you another question just while we're waiting. What is a core, like, and by the way, I'm really asking this because I'm new here. So I really honestly am asking this, but what's a core couple of use cases why do people use these tools in general, like at all?
Yeah, and it kind of just goes back to just validating that your logic is actually working. Like, I can't tell you how often, and not even the security world, but like when I was monitoring backups. I don't know if you've ever managed backups before, or whoever may be out there, but like, there's no way to really know if your backups are working unless you actually test them. And that's kind of the same.
That's a good point.
It's kind of the same idea here, is like you don't know if your detection logic in your alerting is working unless you actually test it. And kind of how effective it is too. Like, I've managed so many different backup platforms, and almost every one of them, this is going to be a shout out to Veeam. I highly recommend Veeam if you're thinking about transferring to a different backup platform. But like, just some of them are just awful out there, and you would like, I can't tell you how often, like I would just make the assumption that my backups are doing really well, and then like I would try to go to use them, and
they fail.
A lot of they would just fail, or they just wouldn't work, and just very frustrating. So it's just kind of the grand scheme of things, just to make sure what you have in place is working.
Are some of these security tools that you have out there on GitHub, do they build upon like the recent vulnerabilities that people are exploiting,
So so most of these won't be any kind of like exploitation things. Like there is a handful. Like I think you could maybe, I guess, throw stuff like Mimikatz in there, but that allows you to kind of extract credentials from LSAS. But for the most part, it doesn't kind of focus around any kind of vulnerability exploitation. But it's another good thing. Like if you have that test environment that you can. Highly would never recommend testing any kind of exploitation thing on a production environment, but you can having that testing environment to be able to do that's very good use case as well. Kind of the same idea. There's a lot of Metasploit and stuff they throw out and kind of turn around a lot of those exploits pretty quickly. So having something like that to be able to test something in obviously a test environment is definitely useful as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess there is no real questions out there, no burning questions on anybody's mind. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Call it an early night, so we could all stay safe under from the storm. And
I'm gonna go batten down the hatches. I think.
Yeah, there you go. But if you have any questions, feel free to post them on our meetup site, and if we need to, we'll get the answers either from Brian or from Shane or from Taylor. Either one, we'll ping them and we'll try to get the answers for you. Okay, and go check out. Did you? I don't remember if you shared out the links of the GitHub where people could download these from.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we got that, but I'll send you that, and then I guess we can probably send you the PowerPoint presentation as well.
If you can post it on share slideshare.net.
Okay.
Which is the LinkedIn place to upload it. Just share it there and send me the link, and I'll post it on the meetup.
And also, I'll just do a last commercial. AtomicRedTeam.io is a great place to go learn about all this stuff, and a starting place. Everything there is free. We serve the community a ton. It's a whole huge part of what we do at Red Canary. So Atomic Red Team is literally all free stuff. But thanks for having us, Mike. And
no problem.
People could check it out.
I think a burning question that a lot of people might have: are you hiring?
Yeah, we're always hiring. And
there you go.
And something too, I know probably a lot of DevOps people already know how to do this, but if you're just getting started in DevOps and or security stuff, GitHub is super, and it's not just GitHub. There's GitLab and all those, all other kind of
repositories, stuff
like that. It's a good way to just learn and get more familiar with that. And so highly recommend, if you ever get the chance to contribute, definitely go try it out.
Definitely. Well, thank you all, Red Canaries, and for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.